I've got a lot of various perspectives to offer as we go through it on the technical side. But what we wanted to start with is to get a sense of the room. So what are you all doing as far as sports in your places for video coverage? Someone, anyone? Please.
We just do that Elizabeth Forward, we just do little pixel art video that's mounted in the gymnasium or at the stadium. So there's really no live broadcasting other than you seeing the field and the game.
Okay, anybody else?
So we got a lot of people who are thinking about it but not doing it yet. Is that true?
They'll be able to hear you on the Zoom that way.
Sounds good.
How about we do this? Show of hands, those in the room today. Who do we have as high school athletic directors? Okay, high school coaches, high school district employees, things of that nature, support personnel, okay. Students, I should say high school students, okay. Current college students. Okay, that helps us get a feel for the room. But wherever you are, we're glad that you're here. We're going to go through, the different ins and outs of sports broadcasting. I hope you're able to get a lot out of it. And we'll take it from the simple to complex.
So, when it comes, this thing is not on, is here as I can tell. Let me borrow your mic, Kevin. When it comes to putting together your broadcast, you have to care about several different things, right? First off, audio. People tend to forget audio when they're doing video. But for sports, we need the announcers, we need the great crowd mics, we need the shotguns on players so we can hear it when the helmets flash, right? We need good video. And what does that mean? Does that mean a cell phone? Well, maybe. If that's all you got, and you just want to get it out there for your people, why not? Right? We all have to start somewhere. But does it mean a broadcast style camera that costs $50,000? Probably not. We can find you something in between. How do we process or base the content? So, we use here at Point Park a video switcher that then feeds our streaming box. Is that right? Yeah. Other places use an integrated solution where all the cameras come into a hardware unit and are manipulated inside a computer. And we'll talk a little bit about that. What other stuff do we want? If you look up on the thing up there, we've got a game clock, we've got points, right? What sort of graphics do we want? What sort of other things do we want to add to our broadcast, and what tech do we need to make that happen? And then finally, where do you put it? And this is the challenging question, right? So we can take it to Facebook Live. That's super easy. We can take it to YouTube Live. Well, also pretty easy. We can use a custom solution, which Kevin will talk about, or we can actually host our own websites, which we're not going to get into that, but all of you probably have IT departments to deal with. So you'll have to negotiate that stuff with them. You're fancy. So, how do we get what you're doing right now online? Most teams are doing what's called game cam, right? We've at least got something to record for a coach's game. Probably video, probably digital at this point, not tape, but same deal. If all you can do is put that online for alums, for parents who might not be able to make a game, that's a win. Right? Add in a little audio to that, and now we've got something. Or maybe you record it, and then you stream it later, if you don't want to, say, take away from your ticket sales, for people who might come to the game rather than watch it on the stream. So then we put a recording device in the mix and we delay. That's actually technically much harder. So then we can kick it up a notch. What we can do is we can take our basic stream, and I'm telling you, you could start with just that game cam or with just a iPhone or Android phone on a tripod, streaming straight to the web. Just do a Facebook Live, hook up your camera, boom, you've got video, and that's wonderful. But what other stuff do we want to do? We want to get more stuff in there. So, questions so far? Just the basics. Sometimes I talk too fast. Sometimes I know stuff that I don't realize I know and forget that not everybody knows it.
Tom, if you want to talk about the history of back in the days of tape delayed broadcast of high school football and just how far we've come. I know you have some stuff to add on that. I do as well.
Sure. Kevin and I were talking history when we were putting this together. So back when I was at WTOVT in Steubenville, we were the most fiercely local station in the country. That's how we saw ourselves, right? Our biggest broadcast ever was a bridge opening because it cut off time for people getting from Weirton, West Virginia to Steubenville, Ohio. Right? So we would do the high school football game every week. And sometimes we would do 2 of them, and sometimes we would do 3 of them. That's where the Gorilla Video came in, because our production people we hired only had 2 good trucks. So for the 3rd game of the week, we went out in our live van with a vertical oriental switcher. So basically, our sales department would go to these little towns in Ohio. They would sell 10-second commercial spots just for the game of the week. And then we would ram them all through production on Friday, the game aired Friday. So Friday, all afternoon long, we weren't doing news, we were doing 10-second, really shoddy commercials for local businesses. But you know what? It was a huge moneymaker, and it was great for tying us to the community, which I think is one of the things we don't think about often enough when we think about sports and sports broadcasting. It's a way to reach your people. So that's kind of my background.
And we will share the mic because our one mic seems to be down. But just like Greg was saying earlier, we've got different things that come up, so it's all part of it. Me as Associate Athletic Director at Quinn Park University here, and also Director of Athletic Communications, for the athletic directors that are in the room, or the district employees, or the anybody that's listening online, where Thom has more of a background in the broadcasting than I do. I came up as media relations, PR, newspaper. That's how I got into college athletics and sports information. But when I started working here at Quinn Park in 2008, and around that time, there was the online radio. The basketball games, football, would be broadcast, but hardly anyone was doing video streaming of games. That's even at the college level. But things have come such a long way since then. I was talking to some guys over here that, it's been a long time since I played, say like Junior Legion or American Legion baseball. But there's networks out there, such as the Westmoreland Sports Network, that they're streaming Junior Legion baseball games, 13 to 15-year-olds. I think that that's just tremendous. And we think back, like, oh my God, if that was there when we played, that would just be so much different. But I think it speaks to the demand of it. There's people out there that would watch it. If you can't get to the game on that night, maybe the grandparents or the extended family or just fans in general are out of town. But secondly, I think that the technology is there, and it says that if something like that is being broadcast, and that's the Westmoreland Sports Network, or whether it's the Trip Live Sports Network, those are media entities that have their own production. But if you're here today to hear about maybe bringing that to your school, I think it's something that the fans will want. It's something that the community, there's a demand for. You really build that community if you're not doing it already, just because of, being 2022, you can pretty much watch anything. So we'd love to help you make it the best as possible, if we're going to go that route.
All right, I have a microphone.
Yes.
Now I am dangerous. Okay, so your lowest end choice is always going to be the built-in, right? So a cell phone is the Uber thing. You can do video, But some camcorders also have the capacity to do that. They're a little higher end. But let's talk about just audio for a second. So, it's entirely okay for you to do an audio stream instead of a video stream. In fact, it's great practice for play-by-play and color announcers to just work in audio when they can't get a whole video set up together. So for smaller sports, right, the ones where you maybe can't get enough student interest to do a big production, audio only is a great solution. So there's a couple ways to do it. Lowest end would be just talking to yourself on a headset. A little higher up, you're going to take things straight into a computer through one of its inputs. And top of the line is a good headset with an XLR connector. You're all familiar with XLR connectors? Audio as opposed to those other cables. So what does that look like? Well, this is your intermediate. And I looked up a bunch of stuff online to see what people were recommending right now for streamers. And interestingly, the biggest group of streamers are video game streamers. So they know the gear, right? So this, at about $51 on Amazon, is what they recommend as your base good streaming headset. That's not going to break anyone's bank, most likely. Right? It goes right into your machine via USB. So you don't have to worry about connectors or other cables. And your machine can be the streaming box. So right there, buy one headset and boom. As long as you've got an internet connection, you're on the air. If you're going to do mixing, however, which is you're going to use multiple microphones, you're going to use crowd noise, you're maybe going to have a little bit of music, that sort of thing, just one computer, probably not going to do the job for you. It's going to need some extra hardware. You could theoretically take a 3.5, that's the little connector that has always been on computers and plugs into like an iPad, not an iPhone anymore. You could theoretically buy something to step that up to a larger connector that a mixing board could handle, but I can't see why you do that. That's terrible, terrible choice. And I'm the person who has built like 4 connectors in a row to get something from the format it was to the format I needed, and I still think this is a bad idea. So this is a really good headset. The website there is B&H Photo. Most broadcasters I know rely heavily on B&H Photo for anything that they're not going to get directly from the vendor. One of the top sites I always recommend checking there at least. So this guy has a microphone with a directional pickup pattern, meaning in this case it's hypercardioid. Basically a microphone can pick up everything. It's omnidirectional. It can pick up in a single direction, it's unidirectional, or it can pick up just a small area right in front of it, which is cardioid, hypercardioid, supercardioid. Right? So this is good. It's got an XLR out for the microphone feed, which you want. And more importantly, it's got a separate audio in so that you can feed what you want to this headset from the audio board. We normally send what's called baselines, which is the program feed minus that person's microphone so they don't hear an echo of themselves. But it also means you've got the right equipment on the other end, you can talk in their ear. You know how the newscasters are always like, wait, I'm getting news, right? That's called interruptible foldback, if I remember my broadcast 101 terminology properly, we call it IFB. And that's how we do it. We basically just feed microphone into their headset. Anything that should be added?
I think you got it. Okay. Starting off with the audio only, that's a good intermediate step here.
Do you have any questions about the audio side of things? When we did this at the college I worked at, we did video production out of the back of a rental truck. So we would pick up the truck on Friday night, we would load all of the equipment, and there was so much equipment. into the truck. And then Saturday morning, we would drive it to the stadium, wire all the racks together, run our cables to the press box and the field and the bleachers, and then do the game. So when you're taking lines to the press box for this, you need 2 for each headset. Ideally, you have an audio snake, which makes your life easy, which is just a big breakout box with a whole bunch of audio lines running in it. We didn't.
And Thom describes the truck that might be outside the press box. If you're fortunate enough to have that sort of thing, that's excellent. If your school district, your school supports that. But an even more basic setup that you probably find at a small college athletics, and we've done it many times whenever we don't have a full complement of like multi-camera or switcher and stuff like that at one park university. And we'll get into the setup of how to bring in the video feed into your computer and so forth. But even if you don't have the truck, out back of the press box, something like a camera into the computer, and we'll just give you examples of a mixing board, but you can have all that up in the press box if that's your simplified setup. That's perfectly fine. And you get on here, you put your mixer on the press box table, and get it into your computer, bring the camera in, and there you go. You have a video stream that has play-by-play commentary.
Yeah, super easy. Nice way to do it.
And there we go, there's a mixer.
That's right. So, if you're doing video switching as well, a number of streaming video switchers will also handle audio. I, however, am a purist. I want my audio to be mixed on a board like this, outside a computer where I can turn knobs and push buttons. Right? So it's a Mackie. Mackie is pretty much the name. I always recommend getting expansion ability if you can, because you may think a 4-channel mixer is all you need, but then suddenly you're like, well, I want a shotgun, I want a sideline reporter, I want play-by-play, I want color, and I want music up. Now I have 5 inputs, right? So I tend to suggest the Mackies as a solution. But basically what it does, you can see up the top, you can see the XLR inputs. It lets you bring in 4 XLR microphones, plus a bunch of other quarter-inch jacks that you use for like a guitar or that kind of audio feed, into the other channels and mix them together.
Thom is mentioning inputs. Inputs and outputs are always so important for understanding those. I believe this is at all new to you. 10 or 12 years ago, whenever we began this at Wood Park, it was to me as well. As someone that sits in the athletic director chair, I was not an expert on it, but it's something of a necessity that you end up having to learn. But this camera has been great for us. If you're able to acquire something like this, I think it'll give you a good look. Full HD, compatible and capable, and that's an example of one of our cameras.
And a perfectly adequate camera for what we're doing, absolutely. So, you're going to if you're doing multi-cam, you need a switching device of some kind. Something that allows you to say, I'm going to use camera 1 now, I'm going to use camera 2 now, I'm going to use camera 3 now. Collectively, we call them switchers, clever, right? And this is where you need to worry about what kind of input or output your camera is sending. Because for instance, this 4HD mixer doesn't take SDI. So if you want the long runs and you choose this switcher, you're out of luck. So you have to envision the whole project from the start. What's my signal going to be? How am I going to process it? What quality do I want? Now, you kind of got to consider what people are going to be watching this on. Most people will be watching it on their phones, so True HD, which is 1920 by 1080, probably fine. That's a measure of horizontal resolution by number of scans. That's what that X by Y means. 2K, our resolution's around 2000. I'm not quite sure there are a whole bunch of them. And 4K is what's kind of coming into vogue now. Not necessarily for our level of things, but for general television. 4K is considered cinematic quality.
And as you get your broadcast going, you're going to hear people say, oh, that's in HD, or wow, it looks so good, or the 1280 by 720, or also known as, for short, 720p, that's the full HD, or that's HD quality. That's what's considered HD, is the 1280 by 720. But the 1920 by 1080, or 1080p, is the full HD.
What we always tell our video production students here at Point Park is go for max resolution, however you can that it meets your needs. So for us, we use a memory card that is a 1-to-1 ratio on 720. So our 32 gig card can record 32 gigs of, or 32 minutes of video. But if we're only shooting 10 minutes, I want to go up. I want to get that higher quality because I can always bring it down, but I can't take it up.
And different considerations of where you can be with that is what can your camera capture? What is your switcher? What can your switcher do? And internet. What is your internet strength? Because depending on where you are, especially if you're on a Wi-Fi device or a hotspot, maybe you can't do 1920 by 1080. All things to consider.
All right, let's look at advanced. Blackmagic came out of nowhere about a decade ago. I think it was a decade. I'm getting old. I'm 50 years. And just upset the whole broadcast technology industry. Like forever, Grass Valley and Ross were the names in video switchers. The Philips happened a little bit, and then Blackmagic popped up and just took serious market away from them. So Blackmagic makes a lot of accessible machines at a decent price point. So these are what I would consider advanced switchers, and some of them have streaming options built in. So you don't need a separate box because it'll stream right out of the switcher. These ones also, I think, do audio processing. I'm not positive.
And now, Tom, a lot of these are designed to just make your life easier, sort of like an all-in-one.
Yeah.
If you could talk about that, or what we need to know in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, the fewer moving pieces you have, the better.
This is what we do at One Park, but in the reverse of what Tom was talking about.
So, I mean, that's a hassle, right? It's one more thing to go wrong. Whereas the Blackmagic does streaming right out. You hook it up to the internet and your stream is online. So for my money, I'd much rather have that option than a separate computer unless that computer is offering me additional things. Here at Point Park, we love us some TriCasters. We have 2 TriCasters on campus right now, one in each of our studios. We have the TriCaster 8000, which is the big one over in our main studio, and we have the predecessor to this one. This guy's about $10,000, which is a lot. But what it gives you that the other ones don't are replay, graphics, streaming, virtual sets, if you want to put your people in front of a green screen and have a virtual set. So this is kind of the Rolls Royce, right? If we're thinking about our various options, we'll start with that cell phone, we'll move to what Point Park is doing, but when some benefactor gives us a lot of money, we'll step up to the TriCaster so that we can make things look really good. There's also software solutions for all this stuff. Like, you don't want to go with a TriCaster, you want a homebrew. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to get a video conversion device that will allow you to bring your inputs into the computer, and you'll use a virtual environment. That's what the TriCaster is. It just has the inputs built in, right? It's a computer that runs software. Here are some options, and Kevin will talk about the Flame production truck for a second, but these are the 3 big names that I was able to find. There are doubtless more.
Yeah, absolutely. So for what we do, where we stream off a computer, we don't have one of those TriCasters or one of those Blackmagic devices that just sends it out. You know, we're very lucky here at Point Park. those types of things are in our on-campus facilities here, whether it's a Center for Media Innovation or things within the school of communication and the TV studio. But the challenge for us at Point Park University Athletics is, with the exception of volleyball, all of our home athletic venues are off campus. Here we are in downtown Pittsburgh. We play volleyball in what used to be the downtown YMCA, but we have soccer, we have baseball, we have basketball. But the volleyball court isn't big enough to have basketball, but you're not going to find a soccer field here in downtown Pittsburgh. So what does that mean? We have to go to Highmark Stadium, which is probably the best home college soccer venue for anybody in the country. But it essentially creates a remote situation where it's not our home-based safe studio. So that's another reason why we stream off the computer. As Thom said, you need some sort of streaming software. OBS is something that you can have as a free download, and you can just begin streaming things out. It's very easy to use. Like with any of these things, you can look up on YouTube. We here at Point Park, of course, want to be a resource for you at any point along the way. That's a big part of why we're doing this here today. Blue Frame production truck, I want to hit on that. That's a software that we want to begin using here at Point Park this coming year. We've used it in different conference championship type settings. Production truck, like the name sounds, it's a software that you have to sign up and register with Blue Frame. You get a license to use the software product, and what they want to create is an environment that is much like the production truck that we talked about earlier that's parked out behind the football press box, but all of those things that are in the production truck are in the computer software. It works on a Mac or a PC. The Mac version has some better features, so if it were me, I would lean towards using getting the Mac, so you can use Blue Frame production truck on a Mac. But it has the graphics, the transitions, the replays, all that stuff, all within the computer. You can really, all within the software, I should say, and you can really step up your game just by using something like that. And the recent development here this year, especially for the high school audience, Blue Frame and Huddle became partners. Blue Frame was acquired by Huddle, or I might have that the other way around. But in any case, they're now working together. And a lot of your teams, whether it's football at your high school, Huddle being the game tape provider, exchange provider. Of course, they'll want to try to sell you the Huddle focus camera when you have that, but you don't really need that. But there's certain advantages with that. If you did get the Huddle focus camera, I think they call it, there's ways to directly stream from that. And so I would encourage you to look into that and see what the capabilities are with Huddle. And really, the audio end of things that we talked about a little earlier, those things can be combined. I was talking to a Huddle representative going into this presentation because we use Huddle for our volleyball and soccer game tape exchange here at Point Park, but I wasn't quite familiar with, I wanted to get up to speed on the, this relationship with Huddle and Blue Frame, and he was telling me about it, and he was very helpful. And so if you reach out to Huddle and Blue Frame and say, hey, what can we do? We're already we use Huddle for our football coaches, or maybe if we have that Huddle focus camera, how can we take that and make a broadcast out of it? Or even maybe it's your high home camera, your main camera for multi-camera broadcast, which we get into that later, but that's what I'd say about the production software. Awesome.
Okay, so that's the end of our tour through the clip. I will say that at some point you wind up needing bigger lenses. If you want to have that tight follow hero shot of the person coming out of the pile of football, or you want to get in there on the wide receiver for replay or something, you need a lens that's bigger than these cameras. So at that point you have to start looking at a bigger camera, right? At least
Like this
for
one,
your tight
and we can get our hands on this one for our broadcast, we like that one.
Yes.
They're from Point Park, those Panasonics.
Yep. Even those ones, I think they have integrated lenses. So I think that you can't do new lenses, but I'm not sure. But, you definitely want at least twice the magnification for your tight camera as you have available for your wide camera. So I'm mentioning tight camera, wide camera, right? For football's kind of the most interesting sport to shoot because there's so many options. So option one is just the game cam that shows the whole field and pans with the ball, right? That's all you do. We're just moving back and forth. If that's all you have, your audience will eat it up if they can't do the game. Because at least it's a chance to see it happen. Second, if I only had 2 cameras and I don't have that tight follow option, I'd probably put a camera on the sideline. Because I want that cool sideline shot. Right? So my game cam and my sideline. My third camera, tight follow with a bigger lens. Cameras 4 and 5 in the end zones. Camera 6, if you're really crazy and you have some crazy money for technology to bring a wireless signal back, put it on the other side and do those classic reverse angle shots. Right? That's kind of my view of how to do football. How do you do basketball?
Well, very much the same way, you have the start off with the high-end camera, if that's the only one you have, perfect, back and forth. It's probably, maybe even recording your coach's tape on that as well. You got an SD card and you hand it off or some other way, save directly to the camera. But something down on the floor, if you're play-by-play broadcasters or the other camera is up in the stands or if you have a press box, something down on the floor certainly is what you want. But I agree with the something that can get the sideline, the coach's reaction in the huddle. That's very valuable as you tell the story and get those reactions from the game.
So whenever you're doing any of these sports, and we're running a little low on time, so we won't go through each of them. The thing to remember is what story are you telling? It all comes back to story. What does the audience want to know about? That's why getting a camera down to the sidelines or getting the tight follow that lets you show the hero shots, that's why it's so important. And when I say hero shot, I mean close up of someone who's just done something really cool.
And Tom's talking about all these shots. And, Greg Brown started us off with play-by-play in color. And we've talked about the equipment. But camera operators are so critical. You can't forget about them. I think with the broadcaster, the main thing is who's calling the game. But the camera operators are so important. I don't want to say make or break it, but kind of, yeah. What would you say about the camera operators?
Running camera for sports, anything other than the game cam, is as much art as skill. When I was at W2, the Wheeling Thunderbirds came to town. They're now the Nailers, I think, still. So naturally, we being fiercely local, immediately started broadcasting like one Thunderbirds game a week, which was a lot of work and taught me that I am a lousy hockey camera operator. Trying to figure out where the puck is going when it's behind the boards is virtually impossible. So it really does take practice and experience to get that right. And this slide is working with students, and that's one of the things you need to be ready for is that they're not going to start good to go on day one. And you're going to need to adapt to that lack of skill, just like they need to adapt to my lack of skill with the hockey. Loosen it up a little, Tom. It's very quite so tight.
It's very easy to forget about the camera operator and the importance of that role. I'm guilty of it. I've been guilty of it where it's like, okay, we got Colton here. Colton just graduated. He's been play-by-play on literally everything for us. Okay, I know we have Colton in the broadcast booth. We know that's good. Okay, we can just get anybody to do the camera. Okay, you never did it before. Okay, all right, fine. But then you're rolling the dice on that. But you have to coach them up. These are some students through the years. See who has what interests on your campus. You never know. look at the morning announcements, look at who's already doing those sorts of things. Look who is showing up to the games with their own camera or whatever to try to get them involved. And we heard from Greg Brown about color play-by-play. But a big thing is, not only is the broadcast such a big thing externally to your fans, but these students that might be high school students of yours, it's just such a great experience for them. And it gives them a head start. Maybe they're want to go to college for that. And we don't see any reason why, and a lot of high schools are already getting their students involved on the high school level, and we love that. And we love to help see where we can help them out in that here at Plum Park.
Get those sports kids on air now. Use your game cam, use a wide cam, video doesn't matter. But the more games they call, the better they get. And then they can come here and we can use them. So, please do that. So repurposing your content, this is kind of what we've been talking about all along, right? How can you take one thing and use it in a lot of places? Well, if you're shooting that game, suddenly you've got something you can use if you do video morning announcements. That's handy. Even if it's got audio with it, you can do a cut down highlights reel for your morning announcements. Right? We can do a highlight reel for all our sports.
Yeah, maybe you save the game film on the SD card or the camera or directly to the camera. Those streaming softwares that I talked about, such as Production Truck. Production Truck will save the broadcast on the computer, so it'll give you a file afterwards, or one of those switchers, I'm assuming will do that as well.
Yeah, the thing is, once you have the content, you can deploy it in a gazillion different ways, and that's what your audience wants. 100%. Do a highlight reel at the end of the season that puts together all of the quarterback's best plays. You're going to make that kid for life. Right? All right. So that's our presentation. We'll take questions and stuff. But here's where you can get in touch with us. I am the only Baggerman employee partner on the phone. We are absolutely willing to answer questions, offer opinions and perspectives, probably more than we want, and help out however we can. So do we have any questions? We have done such an amazing job. We've answered every question. Oh, that normally works to give my students. Nothing?
How we doing on time?
We are just past our end time.
10:15.
7 minutes.